Okay, did I
Hi
mention?
everyone. Hi Sandy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Um, how are things going?
Good, good. I feel like I've been saying this for like the whole month, finishing off the Toronto property.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
We've
know.
got staging in at least. Staging came in on Friday.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Good.
hopefully it goes on the market next week. This week or
Okay,
so,
good.
like finishing up some stuff in the basement and just some little touch-ups outside and stuff. So all the
Yeah,
little things always take forever.
I know. It is those things at the end that take forever. So, but that's the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
Um,
How are things with you?
good, good. The market
Anything
is
new?
picking up like crazy. Um, it's surprising how fast the market is starting to pick up. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once here, and that's why, because I usually have two monitors and I don't today. So,
No
um,
problem.
but
Well,
I
today's
did,
topic is exciting. We're going to be talking about what all the parties are, each party's plans are. So it'll be nice to hear what you have to say about, or like what I guess you'll be reading and sharing with us what
yeah, I'm
everyone
going to
has to
share. Yeah,
say,
I'm going
and
to share
then we'll
my
get to
screen.
comment on that.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen here, and then let me pull this up. Hold on, should pull up. Yeah, this one. Okay. But I also, just give me one sec. Okay. Because I can't see Facebook. So can you see it? If anyone's asking questions, I don't know. If you're able to do it, that would be good. I don't have two screens.
I can, yeah, I can open the chat up. So I have
Yeah,
the
if you
chat
can, that would be
open.
great. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So this is kind of interesting. I was looking at some of this yesterday. I think it's interesting. I think it's good to know as well about what each party is proposing. So I want to start though at the bottom here. So we've got, so this will be basically, they've got the Green Party here. Green Party, NDP, what they're proposing for housing, conservatives, and also the liberals. So let's start at the bottom. I'm not going to go through every single one, but we'll quickly go through, I think, some of these. And then if you have any questions or you see any questions, let me know. So basically with the Green Party, I think theirs is the smallest platform in terms of housing and what they plan to do with housing. Um, and the one thing I noticed that was interesting was the very first line here that says the federal government to redefine affordable housing using an updated formula. So that's a really good question. What is affordable housing, right? Like that's, people need to know what that is. All of the parties have something in here in regards to foreign investment in Canada. So theirs is proposed stronger regulation of foreign investment in real estate, but they don't really have a whole lot of like more, you know what I mean? Like they're really general, I think,
Yeah.
what they're offering here. And a lot of them also talk about vacant homes. So it will be interesting to see what they say about that.
Mhm.
Create a federal empty home tax that would apply to foreign and corporate property owners who leave units vacant. Pledge to work with other parties to address homelessness and expensive housing costs by declaring a national housing emergency. Create a retroactive benefit payment for tenants. So that'll be interesting as well on how it's addressed with tenants, right? Because I think tenants, I think part of the problem with affordable housing, and this is just I mean, anything that you and I are saying here are basically, I think we can give a disclaimer here that these are just our own personal opinions, right? Based on,
100%, yeah.
right, um, because I think some of this, I think from an investor point of view, and you can address this as well, but I think a big problem is that the Landlord Tenant Act is so heavily weighted in favor of tenants that they've really scared a lot of people off into wanting to buy properties and rent them out, which is a shame because I think it should be more balanced so that people want to do that because it gives affordable housing. That's a big problem. When I was growing up, there were a lot of rental buildings. So people would put buildings up and they would be rental buildings, but you don't see that happening anymore. And that's a big problem. And now they're forcing, the average person who buys a property to, really be handcuffed by this landlord tenant act. And I get it. I don't want anyone to get offended. That's a tenant, so I get it from the tenant's point of view. but I also really get it from the landlord's point of view that it can't be so heavily weighted in favor of the landlord. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I have like, oh my God, so many thoughts. So, I
I know.
mean, like even from what you said, let's say with affordable housing, um, like so because of COVID, a lot of things had to change in the economy, and they specifically stimulated the economy to be able to make sure that we could still have businesses going and just to help out the economy. But then the ramifications of that was that now houses aren't very affordable. So it's just like there's good and there's always going to be good and bad that happens. And I feel like people persecute a little too much on things without realizing what both sides are. Like if we're going to stimulate the economy and try to help people out, or for example, like a lot of money printing was happening, but it was kind of good because at least the people who didn't have jobs, like were still able to support themselves, pay their bills to whatever they could. We were helping out people. But then again, the ramifications of all these things that were implemented affected, the prices of houses, and it affected just a lot of our economy, right? And so even for example, affordable housing, yeah, like what is that? I don't even like because the government gave out so much money to people to be able to support themselves in this much time. There's two things that happens, right? Like, yes, people were helped out and this helped them a lot, but this also obviously helped out a lot of businesses who were ready to pivot and move forward and be like, how are we going to deal with this new situation? Let's get moving, let's go. And so there was just a lot of money coming from everywhere, right? Because businesses were getting like also loans and helps, or mortgages were so much easier to get at the time because they're just, again, different ways to stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
And affordable housing, like yeah, that'll be interesting to see like what this redefinition would be, or what it is now, like what it is. And even for example, like I don't even know how people will make it affordable because houses are expensive. And for example, like just thinking of like the ramification of things, for example, like okay, the government's going to give out money to, let's say, make houses more affordable, for example. Well, where's that money coming from loans from the government or from us, the people, right? And then so like, do you know what I mean? Like the circle just keeps on, if anything, making housing more go up more and more. And so I don't even think they're actually really, like it's very hard to define like how we're going to actually make housing affordable because like is like that you're pumping more money, or you're for example needing to tax more people to take that money to give affordable housing, but then that's going to cause the same things to happen, right? Like it's still going to make the price of houses increase more and more, right? From
Yeah.
taking from the people. So it's just like a vicious cycle that I feel like it's going to be interesting to hear how this is going to happen. Yeah, how affordable housing is going to happen because it's just
Yeah. I
that's
think
how
I
the
think
economy is. I don't know.
I think defining affordable housing is a big thing. Like, what is affordable housing? There's lots of affordable housing. If you want to live downtown Toronto, no. But if you want to live in other places, there's lots of affordable housing. So I guess it comes down to where you want to live, where you're going to work. Like the bigger cities are always going to be more expensive, right? Like if we want to be in areas that the housing is, if you want to be in Toronto or the big cities, like look at some of the other big cities in the world, right? I mean, we are becoming a world-class city, which means we have world-class prices. And if you want to live in New York City, or you want to live in Tokyo, or you want to live in London, those are very expensive. I don't think the government should be trying to fix all of this. I think it will naturally take care of itself on some level. So, you know, we want more affordable housing, but we don't want a smaller place, right? We don't
Yeah,
want a condo. So that's like, there is affordable housing, but if you don't want to live in a condo, then yeah, like I think the expectations got to be a little bit different. And when you're moving to some of these bigger, like cities like that, you expect that you're going to have a tiny little place and people are okay with that. But here they still want they want the big house, and they want it to be affordable in downtown Toronto. That's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
That's what the problem is, right?
Yeah.
So
But
yeah.
even, for example, let's say you're going into smaller cities where I feel like in Ontario, even if you're going to smaller towns or cities, it's still quite expensive. But it's also just taking into consideration, for example, like if you go to, let's say, Alberta, like the economy is not doing very well. That's probably why the price of houses are not very high. But then what does that mean? Also, there probably aren't that many jobs, and or depending, or like that same, like if you go to certain cities, like you may have to drive from there like an hour and a half just to make it somewhere for a job. Like it's just there's so many different variables. And yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't know if there is really much to fix, because it's just something that I think like you said, like I think it'll just fix itself,
Yeah,
like
it
like
will fix itself.
incomes will have to now go up more. I mean, we're not going to see it obviously go up as fast as houses went up, but they will have to go up more to be able to, for those people that want to be able to live somewhere. Like things will naturally start shifting on its own.
Yeah, well, and
Just some
you
things
also
move
have
faster
like,
than others.
yeah, and you have what we're seeing a lot of, what I'm seeing a lot of right now is people moving out of the city and combining households in the same house with maybe two separate units, and having a little bit of space to live on, making it more affordable for both parties, and having a little bit of land, and not dealing with the traffic, not dealing with all of that stuff, right?
Mhm.
So if you look at some of these things, like going back to the tenant thing, I mean, I have a client who bought three houses in a city that he never intended to live in, rented them out, and made money. Like that to me is affordable housing for the people who were living in those houses. But when you start to make it too hard for somebody to do that, then you've got a problem with affordable housing, because they can't all be owner occupied. And then you've got cities who their bylaws are so strict. I mean, I have another client who had a property in Brampton with a basement apartment, above grade basement apartment, like a bungalow that had, one of the raised bungalows. So the basement was perfect for an apartment. The city made them rip it out and said, you cannot have this, you can't have this second unit in your basement. You have to take the kitchen out. And the main reason was because the driveway was less than an inch too wide. So they didn't have the parking there. Like that to me is just it, like it makes no sense to me whatsoever why you would do that when you're looking, for people to have a safe. It was a good, I've seen some basement apartments that I wouldn't put my dog in, but this was a really good basement apartment. There has to be some common sense there. Like, you want people to rent these places out. Why would you do that? Made them rip everything out, get a permit, and now they can't rent out the basement. That's a shame for somebody who wanted a place like that. The owners are great people. I just don't, that kind of stuff makes no sense to me. But let's
Yeah.
get back to this. Let's get back to some of these ones here. But so we'll touch a little bit on the NDP. So the NDP's housing plan focuses on making housing more affordable for families while helping young Canadians and families buy a home they can afford, and build 500,000 new affordable homes in 10 years, with half done within the first 5 years. So the question is, where are they putting
How?
500? Where are they going to put these 500,000 homes is the question. Like, that's what I'd like to know. Where are you planning to put them? Because I think it's a great idea, but where? Because depending on where people want to live, and that's where people's perspective has to change. Like, that's the kind of stuff that has to change. Because if they want them in downtown Toronto, or any, like, downtown Vancouver, downtown Montreal, any of these big cities, you're going to have a problem, right? So what else do they say here? Work in partnership with provinces and municipalities, build capacity for social, community, and affordable housing providers to provide rental support for co-ops and meet environmentally energy efficiency goals. That's a pretty lofty goal there. So
Yeah.
go after big money investors by putting a 20% foreign buyers tax on the sale of homes to individuals who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents. I think what would be interesting to me is, I'd like to know how much of an issue this really is. Target money laundering and organized crime with the housing sector by making it harder to hide behind numbered companies and giving regulators more teeth. There's one in here I want to get to, because it's something about realtors, and it was really interesting to me.
But
Re-
that money laundering thing, actually, sorry to stop, but
we all touch on
that's
it. We all
actually
touch on it. Yeah,
what point is that? Where can
right
you
here.
go to
So
it?
target money laundering. You're going to see this on almost
Where's
every platform
where's
where
your
the whole,
mouse?
can you see it? Target money laundering and organized crime within the housing sector by making it harder to hide behind numbered companies.
Yeah. So I find that strange, how they put together money laundering and numbered companies as the same thing, because I work at a bank
Yeah.
and money laundering is the money that's going in and out of the bank accounts. I don't know what that has to do
Well, I
anything
think with
with numbered
houses, it's
companies.
buying a house and then selling it. You're laundering that money, right? If you're paying, you could very, I think you could easily launder money by buying houses if you're a foreign buyer,
But
right?
the thing, so foreign buyer stuff, yeah, I don't really know that much about, but I can tell you at least how it works in the banks. Like you have to show where your money is coming from.
Oh, same with housing.
And
Like you can't come in.
yeah, so
You
I
could go
feel,
and buy a house for, $1 million cash and just bring cash in and say, here's $1 million I'm paying for this house. You got to show where it comes from. But
no, if it were cash, I mean, if like it was actually like bags of
yeah,
cash, I think you could actually do that. But I'm saying if you're doing, for example, going into bank accounts and stuff, where you're dealing with the banks, which is, I feel like majority of number companies work that way. Um, because for example, okay, a numbered company, like you have a numbered company, um, I don't even think numbered companies can work on cash. Like that would have to be, that'd be actually interesting because I don't think numbered companies can work on that amounts of cash.
yeah. I don't know.
Like
I
I
don't know
know
enough about
people
that.
can,
Yeah,
like people can, like a
yeah.
person can be like, hey, here's a bag of cash, take it and buy the house. But that's why I kind of find it interesting that they're kind of tying money laundering with numbered companies.
Yeah.
Um,
Who knows? I don't know enough about that to speak to that, to be honest with you. So who knows? Um, double the home buyer's tax rate. Some of these I think are funny because they kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth. They're making it harder to buy houses and making it easier to buy houses. So I think they're trying to appeal to everybody. But here's an interesting comment that somebody's made. So builders need to be creative and create co-op housing and things like that that are area appealing, which is a really good point. So I had a conversation with some people a few days ago in a neighborhood that I'm very familiar with, where there's two schools that have been closed down, and now, like, a very, very short distance away, they're building another community. And within that community, they're building a school. So now there's two schools in very close proximity that have been closed down, and they're going to build a new school there. So, and I think the reason for that is because builders have to, when they're if they're building so many houses, they have to incorporate a school in there. So there's a school, but maybe what it needs to be is incorporate some low cost or affordable housing into that. And I think that kind of happens. But so this is where it gets interesting, because they're talking about making it harder. And then they're saying double the home buyer's tax credit to $1,500 to help with closing costs. There was another one in here. Some of these are kind of interesting.
yeah. But the other thing that I like to note about that is like they give all these incentives, but realize this is coming from either our taxes or loans that the government is having to get.
Yeah,
Again, like you just feel like it's that vicious cycle, right? Like,
right.
is that 1,500 really going to help in the grand scheme of things, or is it just going to help push forward the price of houses going up more? And then again, like again, increasing and increasing, increasing these benefits, but then it's also, but I think price of houses increase much faster, higher than these little like tax benefits that they give.
Oh, okay. Sorry, one second. Because somebody, are we live on Facebook? Because somebody's asking me, is it live?
Oh, it says live on Facebook, but I don't
Okay,
know.
that's what I thought. Okay, I think I know why it's fine.
And I gotta check. I wasn't in your account, so let me check.
Okay,
Yeah, it shows live. Yeah, we're live.
okay, good. So maybe they're just in the wrong, maybe they're on my business page.
Maybe.
Okay. Okay, just give me one second. I'm sorry. I'm trying to, I also have to work sometimes, right? So, so
Working live. We're working live on the spot, quickly talking to someone.
the life of a real estate agent, right?
Yeah.
Okay, one second.
That's funny. But
So,
yeah, just I guess for me saying, Also, actually, I'm kind of curious on your opinion. I don't know for I was looking at stats and I can't remember the numbers, so don't quote me on it. But
Yeah,
at least in Ontario, for example, these foreign buyer
yeah,
like taxes that they want to implement. I
yeah,
in Ontario at least the percentage is not really that high for like I feel like they make a bigger shout about foreigners buying and it's not the percentage is not really that much for it to be worth it to for example I don't know try to I don't know put some kind of law into place or bylaw or whatever for it. I don't know if that's worth it. Like sometimes I feel like we're also wasting time on things that is maybe more flashy. I like, do you know how it is for foreign
I
buyers?
don't, you
Is
know
it a
what,
lot
in
in
all
Ontario?
honesty, sorry, let me, one sec, sorry, now I started that because I wanted to see. Oh, okay, I really made a mess here. Okay. Honestly, I can't speak to that because I haven't, that, you know what, that might be something that we could touch on in another call because I don't know the answer to that question. Do we get a lot of foreign buyers? Mm, not really. I would say not really ourselves, but that I don't know the answer to that question. So I think it'd be a good topic to maybe explore and talk about one day.
Yeah,
Um,
because I remember I checked once and it didn't seem that high. Like it seemed like a low percentage to me.
yeah.
And
And who knows? I think sometimes, like I hate to say it, but I think sometimes they just like they kind of, want to make people think they're doing something. I don't know. I mean,
or like it's more of an excuse, like, oh, it's their fault. It's the foreigners' faults that are buying, and
yeah,
that's why the price of houses are going up. Where and
yeah,
then makes a person feel better. Oh, okay, it's their fault, and they're putting in like these rules for us to help us out. Where I don't see that. At least, yeah, like I checked a few like a few months ago, and I was just curious about that. And
yeah.
to me, I was just like, I don't really see this happening at this big grand scale where it matters enough for us to even put some bylaws or regulations in place for it.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, they supposedly curbed foreign buyers in 2017, and here we are. So that didn't work. Really, if you think about it, that didn't work. They did that in
Yeah.
2017. That's why I think sometimes they just need to not get involved in the market is naturally going to take care of itself. But here's an interesting one in the NDP platform. Canadians to have access to affordable reliable high-speed broadband within 4 years. So when I first read that, I thought, okay, like what does that even mean and why is that important? But here's what just dawned on me. So I live in a rural area. So I'm in Ancaster, but I'm just outside of Ancaster, kind of. And I don't work from home because my internet there is so bad. Like I can only get the lowest speed internet, so I can't work from home. So maybe that's why that's in there, is that they would give more, have more people can work from different areas where they have high speed internet. I think that maybe that's what that means,
Yeah,
right?
good point. And also, I mean, I guess that's also for a lot of people that will be staying working from home, they maybe had that struggle. And that's probably something that people are pointing out now because, for example, with me, I don't think I'm going to be going back to the office anytime soon.
Yeah,
I think I'm working from home for, I don't know, a while.
for a while, eh? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, okay. So here's another one. So let's look at the conservatives. So the conservatives are promising to ease housing affordability through a three-pronged approach that involves increasing housing supply, tackling money laundering, there you go again, and foreign investors, and making mortgages more affordable. So here we go again, where we're like, make it harder, but make it easier. So which one is it, right? So increase supply by building 1 million homes in the next 3 years. Okay, where are they building these? And I honestly, my personal opinion is, don't make it harder for people to buy houses, make it easier for people to buy houses. If there's more housing, like the fact of the matter is, it's supply and demand. The price is based on supply and demand. The less supply there is, the higher the demand. That's just the way it goes. Like that's what we need to focus on. If there's more houses and there's more housing, then the prices will naturally level off, right? So leverage federal infrastructure investments to increase housing supply by building public transit infrastructure that connects homes and jobs, by bringing public transit to where people are buying homes, and requiring municipalities receiving federal funding for public transit to increase density near the funded transit. I think this is huge, to be honest with
That's
you.
a great thing. Yeah.
Yes,
I like
I'll tell
this.
you. So I used to live in Mississauga, and I moved, I'm going to say I moved about like 15-minute drive from, so at one point I moved, and the house I moved to was about 15 minutes away. I lived, if you drove in Mississauga, their transit, I'm just going to put it out there, is terrible. So I lived at that point a 7-minute drive from the GO train by car, 45 minutes by bus. 45 minutes by bus. It was a
Oh,
simple down this street, across this street, and the GO train was right there. And it was a 45-minute bus ride. That is ridiculous. So if you want people to, like, public transit is got to be much better. Like in Mississauga, my way is terrible. Like I hate to like point something out like that, but it is really bad. To get to Square One where they have their hubs to get around, I mean, they have the hub there, which is great. But that house that I lived in to get to Square One was I'm going to say about a 15 to 17-minute drive, an hour and a half by transit. There's like,
oh,
you're in the fifth largest city in the country. Mississauga has over 700,000 people in it, and their transit system is terrible. Their roads are like, to drive anywhere in Mississauga is the biggest reason I moved from there was the traffic in Mississauga. It is atrocious.
but
So
is this
I would have
recently?
this argument with my son all the time where he would say they have to make it harder for people to drive. And I would say, no, don't make it harder for people to drive. Make it easier for them to take public transit. Plain and simple. Because there's a lot of people who would take public transit, but they're not going to do it because of things like that. Right?
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like that just doesn't make any sense to me. So everybody in Mississauga, if you work downtown and you want to take the GO train, you want to live on the lakeshore line. Well, to live on the lake, that's why it's so expensive down the south part of Mississauga, because who wants to live in the north part? You can't, you got to drive. So
Yeah. Oh,
that's
I see what you
very
mean. So
interesting.
is that recent or is that because I thought, but then again, it's funny perspective, right? Because I remember when I was younger and I didn't have a car and I was like in my first job, I'm like, I wanted to try to, no, not my first job, because my first job was in Toronto, but I used to commute to Toronto and in Oakville, their transportation is terrible. Like it's non-existent there.
It's non-existent. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I would get driven to the GO station, and then obviously it was very simple. But then I moved to a job that was in Mississauga, and yeah, for me to go from Oakville to transfer into Mississauga and then go to work, it was like an hour and a half, and that was like I can't waste my time like that. And I bought a car, and it was just like time to buy a car. Like now, not time to
Yeah.
bite the bullet and buy a car. But
And
I
not
thought
only that,
Mississauga was better though.
you were paying three different transit fares. You're paying Oakville. Then when you get to Mississauga, you're paying the Mississauga fare. And then when you get to Toronto, you're paying the Toronto fare. So it's very interesting. But here's something interesting here. Review the real estate portfolio of the federal government, the largest property owner in the country with over 37,000 buildings, and release at least 15% for housing while improving the federal lands initiative. That's very interesting. Incent developers to build the housing Canadians both want and need by encouraging Canadians to invest in rental housing by extending the ability to defer capital gains tax when selling a rental property and reinvesting in rental housing, something that is currently excluded. Awesome. I love that.
Mhm.
Exploring converting unneeded office space to housing. Wow. Enhance the viability of community land trusts for affordable housing by creating an incentive for corporations and private landowners to donate property to land trusts for the development of affordable housing. I actually love that. I think that's a great idea. Incentivizing people, what we were saying at the beginning, incentivizing people to
Mhm.
have rental housing. It makes so much sense, right? So
Yeah, yeah, I have to say I also like that too.
yeah, tackle corrupt activities driving up costs of housing, money laundering, and foreign investors. So there's some more stuff about money
I
laundering.
feel like that's more for Flash. Again, I don't know, because again, like in my communities, at least that I see of all the investors, I don't know. I don't see this like money laundering business
Yeah.
happening and
Well,
stuff.
it, yeah, and I don't think it's something that we would see. Who knows? I don't think it's something yeah, I mean, if they're all tackling it, maybe it is an issue that we just don't know about. That's why I
I
say
guess,
I don't
yeah.
know enough about it to
Because it also
kind
just
of comment.
surprises me, at least like last year and this last year a lot. They made it so easy to get a mortgage. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
Getting loans and stuff was super easy. So I'd be like, why would anyone need to go through those efforts when they're giving money out like candy, at least last year?
Well, this is interesting. So they talk a bit about foreign investing. They're talking about banning it for a 2-year period and then reviewing it. And then here's a good point though. Encourage foreign investment in purpose-built rental housing that is affordable to Canadians. I think that's a great idea. If you're going to invest in Canada, why not incentivize them to invest where it's needed? That makes sense.
Mhm.
Make mortgages more affordable. Here we go, because they're not affordable at 1.7%. Encourage the offering of,
Love it.
but here's a good point though, encourage the offering of 7 to 10 year mortgages to provide stability for both first-time home buyers and lenders. So I think I like that. Um, remove the requirement to conduct a stress test when a homeowner renews a mortgage with another lender. That's a good
Actually,
point.
sorry, can I pause for a minute? For
Yeah.
the 7 to 10 year mortgages, I don't know if that's worth it or not for people because first time home buyers usually want to move within 5 years. And for example, if it's a variable mortgage, I mean, you're still going to deal with the fluctuations of the economy. And then if you're fixed and you want to move within 3 to 5 years, you're stuck with this crazy amount of money that you have to pay back.
Yeah, you know what, I get what you're saying, but what I'll say from my point of view, being a realtor, people like that stability. There's a lot of first-time buyers who like the stability of having a long-term first mortgage, and I get it. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but a lot of people like the stability of having a longer mortgage and knowing exactly what they're going to be paying for that period of time. Like if that's a long time, then maybe um, you have a different penalty payout depending on where you are in that term, right? Like maybe after 5 years, the penalty is less or whatever, something like that. I think that's totally doable, but I can see a lot of people liking that 7 to 10 year mortgage thing, to be honest with you. That's my personal opinion. But for, just basically from what I see, I think people would be totally open to that. So um, so increase the limit on eligibility for mortgage insurance and to index it to home price inflation, allowing those in high priced real estate markets with less than a 20% down payment and opportunity at home ownership. Great idea. Again, I think that's great. Mortgage insurance is very expensive and sometimes it's hard to get, and index it to home price inflation. I like that. This is a great one. Fix the mortgage stress test to stop discriminating against small business owners, contractors, and other non-permanent employees, including casual workers. Perfect. No capital gains tax on the sale of Canadians' principal residence. That is a huge issue. And I think that giving a capital gains on a principal resident is a huge, huge mistake. That's how a lot of Canadians create wealth and have money to retire. That is absolutely cannot put a capital gains tax on the sale of a principal residence. I think that is
But
like
doesn't that already exist right now?
no, not on your principal residence.
Yeah.
No, no, there's no capital gains on your principal
Yeah,
residence.
there's no capital gains.
Right.
Yeah, there's no capital gains.
No,
So,
because I think they're saying that because the Liberals want to put a capital gains tax on your principal residence,
oh,
which
okay. I
is
was gonna
which
say,
is
I'm like, this already
really, really, that's terrible.
silly. That's silly. Yeah, that makes
How
it
are people
silly.
going to save for retirement? That's how most people save for retirement.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah. Or even just like that, when you inherit it, you don't have to worry about the primary one. At least
Yeah.
your state's not having to deal with the tax. Oh, so liberals are planning to do that?
Well, let's look at the Liberals one. So they also have a 3-part strategy. So let's see what they say here. Unlock home ownership. Introduce a tax-free first home savings account that combines the features of both an RSP and a TFSA to allow Canadians up to age 40 to save up to $40,000 towards their first home and to withdraw it tax-free to put toward a home purchase with no requirement to repay it. So right now, I think it's 20,000, is it not? if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
25,000, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then so I think they're changing it a little bit because that's an RSP, but they're allowing you to use your TFSA as well and your RSP. But if you're taking out your RSP right now, you do have to repay it. So they're saying you don't have to repay it, which is a good idea, I think, because as long as it's in your house, then it's still basically a retirement savings, right? Like I'm not a big believer in RSPs, I have to say, because I think RSPs, like for me, RSPs are designed that you're going to make less money as you age. And why are we incentivizing people to make less money as you age? Why can you not invest and make more money as you age? That's my plan. I don't
Yeah.
plan to make
But
less.
you're an entrepreneur, so it's different. Because
I
same
know,
thing,
but
I also believe the same thing. Like I don't really now believe about RSPs, but I mean, I know that RSPs is meant for like the middle class people, right? For like
but
those people that
educate people. They got to educate people so they know what their options are. Here's the other issue with RSPs. Right? You know today how much money that's going to be taxed at. If you're saving for an RSP in your 20s or 25 and you're going to use that 20, 40 years later, you don't know what the tax rate is going to be 40 years later. I know what the tax rate is today. And guess what? The tax rate's not going down. It's only
Mhm.
going up.
Yeah,
Do
no,
you know what I'm saying?
100%. But I'm just thinking for those people, for example, that suck at saving money and just for some reason
Yeah.
for the life of them can't make it happen. An
Yeah.
RSP is nice for those people that just like you put it in, it can't come out. Although, yeah,
Yeah.
not that it
Yeah.
can't, you can still take it out,
Yeah.
but
I get it.
like like but I feel for people entrepreneurs who want to you know make something of themselves, RSPs, you start realizing RSPs are kind of useless to you because it's for those middle class people that kind of just like want to stay where they are, and like you said, like they kind of know like either the spending is a lot and in the future they probably may not have a spend like any spending, so at least this kind of gives them a way to pause themselves from spending other money.
Yeah.
um,
Maybe. Yeah. So also they're saying they'll double the first time home buyers tax credit from 5,000 to 10,000 to help with closing costs. That's good. Force CMHC to slash mortgage insurance rates by 25%, a $6,100 savings for the average person, and increase the insured mortgage cutoff from 1 million to 1.25 million and index it to inflation. Good idea. Proposing a rent to own program with 1 billion in new funding to help renters become homeowners. Okay, that'd be interesting how they're going to plan to do that. I'd like to see more
what do
about
you
that.
think about rent to own?
I don't know. I think rent to own has never really taken off because there's issues with rent to own, right? I mean, I love people would love to. I think as an investor, people would love to do rent to own, and as a tenant, people love to do rent to own. The issues come in with at what price, the market's fluctuating, going up and down, and you're buying this house at today's price. 5 years down the road, 5 years down the road, the house is worth way more money, and now the seller doesn't want to sell it to the buyer. The buyer or the house, if they go down, the buyer doesn't want to buy it. So I don't know. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea, and I think I like the conservative approach more, where you're incentivizing people to buy houses for people to rent that are affordable. Because I think there is a segment of the population that is never going to own. They don't want to own. They're going to rent. So make it, that's my personal opinion. So what do
Yeah,
you think?
so
What's your
for
thought on
me,
that?
same thing. I like the rent to own actually because for those people that just can't seem to save money for the life of them, and rent to own kind of forces them to save money. Um, that being said, there are good rent to own companies and not so good rent to own
Yeah.
companies. You definitely want to do your research and go to a company that does good rent to owns, because there's actual companies out there that like have a broker on staff, and that like a mortgage broker on staff, and they actually check how realistic they are, and they give them terms for when they should be able to, for example, afford a house, to be able to buy it, and then be like the term. And and there's companies that will actually do like regular check-ins on them to actually make sure they're still meeting their goals for their credit report and stuff, to make sure that they're still on track to
Yeah.
actually buy the house in that time required. um so I like it again for those kind of people who just like need that guidance to
I have
save.
a question
And
for you though. I just realized that I have my earphones in and I'm not even like listening through them.
oh,
So I'm like, why can I not hear that well? And then I
oh.
thought, oh, that's why, because I've got my ears plugged. Anyway, um, okay, let's get back on focus here, Sandy. Okay, so here's a question for you though. So I've heard you say a number of times, like those people who just can't save for the life of them. I don't think it's a matter of people can't save. I think it's just an education thing, how to do it. Who's taught in school how to save? Who's taught in school about mortgages? Who's taught in school about financial independence or financial freedom or anything to do with finances? You don't learn much in school about finances and how to save. So if you don't learn it, then you don't pass it on to your kids don't learn it. If you're not learning that anywhere. I mean, I've said this a number of times on these calls. I hired someone a couple of years ago to teach me about financial um,
Literacy.
literacy. I hired somebody to teach me financial literacy at 57 years of age because I had no idea. I was just working like a crazy woman. I had no idea how much money I was going to need to retire, what I was going to need to do. I just kept working. And I would go to see financial advisors and they would say, you need, this many millions to retire. And I'm like having a heart attack. Like, where am I going to get this many millions to retire? I had no, like, so they weren't teaching me what to do. They were just telling me, just do this, throw all this money in an RSP. And I didn't really know enough, but I knew enough to say, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense because I don't I don't plan to make less money the older I get. I plan to make more money because I'm going to invest. But if nobody teaches you that, you don't know it. Right. So I think it's an education thing.
And I totally agree with that. I definitely agree that education is so important. But I also, and it's actually funny that you're saying this because I'm reading a book. It's called The Four Disciplines. I don't know, something. and um, and one of the things they're talking about statistics of people,
Statistics. Yeah.
and basically they say, for example, the smallest percentage of people are the doers, the action takers, right? And this is talking about, before I actually say this is talking about specifically businesses and
Yeah.
just how businesses run, but I believe this also applies to like society in general. But in a business you have, and they're talking about adapting to new changes, right? When you make a change to a company, there's the action takers, which is a small portion of people that I think they call them the doers, that they go and they adapt. They're like, okay, this is a new process, this is the new whatever we're doing, we're getting it done, we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the people that are, I don't remember what they call them, but they're kind of like, they kind of fake it. Like they're like, yeah, we're going to do it, but they only maybe implement half of it, only whatever they feel like. And that's like a bigger portion of people. But the biggest portion of people are the people that have zero interest in adapting to the changes. And so I guess that's why I say, because I'm also to the view that not everyone cares about money enough, or not everyone cares to learn about it. And I've even seen it in just like people around me, that there's just people that it's like blinders on, or just don't even want to think about it. And but again, and then using that creativity to be able to give those people opportunities, I think is still important, because like that, not everyone is so like gung ho, let's learn it, let's figure it out, let's change. Some people want to change, some people are like, I don't know what it is, like it's that the mind shift, right? Some people just have a very static mind, and it's like my way or the highway, and don't want to learn anything, don't want to adapt to their situations. And it's a big majority of people that are like that, to be honest. I feel like my people that do the mindset shifts are probably smaller, because it is like, it's very hard, they say, like statistically it's very hard for people to change, right? And
Yeah.
so that's why I think that it's good to have all these different opportunities, like let's say the rent one own, for those people that want to have a property but just can't save a buck for their life. My 2 cents.
Well, that's another reason why we do our mindset call once a month, right? Talking about mindset, because I mean, the only way to change your mindset is to continually work on it, right? And I think the easiest way to do that is by reading. And you just said, you're reading a book about that. That's a lot of what I do. I rarely listen to music in my car. I'm usually listening on Audible to a book, either about mindset or about business, right? Because it's the best way to educate yourself, I think. I would probably give more, to like people struggling. I'd prefer to give them a book than money, really. I mean, if reading is the number one way to be able to think, I think, to educate yourself. That's just my personal opinion. I love to read, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways to read or to learn these things if you don't want to do that. But let's get back to this. So the Liberals here want to build more homes as well. So let's read a couple of these. Invest $4 billion in a housing accelerator fund for the creation of 100,000 new middle-class homes in 4 years. This will provide the tools to municipalities to increase supply, reduce approval times, establish inclusionary zoning bylaws, and encourage transit-oriented development. I think this goes back to exactly what you've been saying. Where is this money coming from? Where's the money coming from? Because it's got to come from somewhere. And if you can't, rob Peter to pay Paul, right? You can't borrow from Peter to pay Paul all the time. You got to, it's got to come from somewhere. So a promise of 2.7 billion over 4 years to build or repair more affordable housing. Convert empty office and retail space into market-based housing. So it looks like both the Liberals and the Conservatives have jumped on that. Introduce a multi-generational home renovation tax credit to be used for adding a secondary unit by being able to claim a 15% tax credit up to 50,000 in renovation. So what are they saying here? So if you're building a secondary unit, an in-law suite for a family member, you could get a 15% tax credit. That's interesting.
Is it for just family member? Like these are
Well, I think that's what they're
right?
multi-generational home renovation tax
Okay.
credit. So I think so.
Right. Yeah,
But
that's right.
yeah, protect your rights. So here we go again, talking about non-residents and vacant. Here's implement a 1% national tax on non-resident, non-Canadian owners of vacant, underused housing, as outlined in Budget 2021, including foreign-owned vacant land within large urban areas. I wonder if some of the foreign investors, like, think about this though, Diana, I just had a thought. Foreign investors buying homes here so their kids can go to school, right? They're foreign investors, like people buying homes near Mac or near UTM or U of T, McGill, like some of these larger universities. Like some people would buy, foreign investors would buy a house so their kids could go here. So I don't think it's fair to say, I don't think it's fair to really to say you can't have foreign investors buying, period. Like, I think there's a reason for it. I guess you got to look
But in this case, so they're not stopping them. Though my question actually is more, if they're, for example, like, I don't understand, again, 1% for non-residents or non-Canadian owners of vacant houses.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be all vacant houses, for example? Like if we're trying to solve that we don't want any houses vacant, shouldn't that technically apply to everyone? Doesn't matter who it is. And then my second comment is, if rich people are investing in Canada from outside, I don't think 1% is going to make a difference to them, and they will be like, I don't care, I'll pay the other 1%.
Yeah.
Because they're usually, people that are foreign investors are usually using the house for storing their money. That is the purpose. So if they're having to put that extra 1% in there, they probably don't really care, to be honest, because their house is like their little bank account in Canada.
Sure. Yeah, sure. And maybe they're hiding it from wherever they're coming from. Who knows? I mean, you never know, right? But I think it's kind of unfair to say they can't buy it, period. I think the Conservatives said 2 years, stop on that. But I don't know. I just think of that. I mean, who knows? This is an interesting one. We'll review the tax treatment of large corporate owners of residential property such as REITs to curb excessive profits, and will also review the down payment requirements for investment properties to limit speculation. I think there's just way too much uncertainty in here. Like, I think it's, you just can't have everything. I think I don't understand the issue with making a profit. Like, isn't that what business is supposed to be about? You get into business to make a profit. So if you're going to stop it in one spot, like, and what do you consider excessive profits? Because I think there was something else in this one, and I think, let me just see if it's, I can't remember which one it was in. I want to look at this because I found this really, really interesting. Oh, this one. Establish an anti-flipping tax on residential properties, requiring properties to be held for at least 12 months to reduce speculative demand. I think personally, I think that's crazy because you know what? Buyers want houses that they don't have to do work to. So somebody buying the house, here's the thing, it's supply and demand, like we said earlier. And if you're, the market is going to dictate what they want. And the market clearly wants houses that have been renovated because they don't want to have to do the work to it. And that's why a lot of times we see people flocking to new homes because they don't want to do the work to the older properties. I don't see the problem in somebody taking a house and renovating it, making it nice and building a product. If there was no demand for it, they won't sell and people will stop doing it. Like, I don't understand that thinking. Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like, let's make sure that nobody can get rich. Like, you get rich, you make money because you are giving a service. You don't get rich by not giving a service, right or wrong. Like, you don't make money if you're not giving a service.
If you're doing your job well, that's why you become rich. If you're not doing your job well, like for example, if you're a flipper who only cares about making a buck and you do, for example, terrible renovations,
Yeah,
like you'll start seeing that you won't really be making money.
100%.
But if you're a flipper that does quality work and people are wanting to buy your houses, and
Yeah,
the thing is, that's what bidding wars happen. But to get onto the flipping, so it doesn't make sense what they're doing because
no.
one,
Oh,
the purpose of flipping is we're doing gentrification. What does gentrification mean? We're trying to bring up the value of certain areas, right? That's what everyone, you see buildings like bad areas, you start, either building new buildings or you start flipping them and you start bringing up the value of those areas. And that's how our middle classes are growing up, right? And that's a very business related thing. Like, businesses need to do that, right? Like, individual people are not very good at doing that. Like, that's not their purpose. They're not going to be like, hey, I live in this terrible area, let me invest some money in it and try to make it look nice to be like the first in the area to have a nice house and start, building up the area to be better. No, that's
yeah,
companies go in and do that.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and also, like, all this is doing is that flipping will still continue to happen. So
yeah,
what's just going to happen is that flippers will become creative, figure out how to do it in whatever way, whatever way they have to. And imagine if they have to, let's say, hold on to it for 12 months. What's going to happen? Again, you're just going to make the prices of houses more expensive, right?
right.
Because if it's going to
Yes,
cost us, instead of, like, let's say 100K to do a flip, now it's costing us 150K because now
you
we're
got to
holding
carry
it
it.
for longer. Now the price of the house is going to go up anyway. So what have you done? Just and continually increase the price
Yes.
of houses again, which is what, aren't we trying to prevent that?
You're right. You're right
Um,
about that. You're right. It's going to be built into the price of the house. Yeah. The price
yeah, like,
of
we're
the
running a business here. We're not here to be like, hey, I'm gonna spend this money and lose money. No, that's like bankrupting my business. I have
yeah,
to make sure my business is making money so I can continue to, renovate other houses, gentrification, and that's what we do, right? That's the purpose of flipping.
yeah.
So
Here's an
that's
interesting one.
I don't know what
Here's a really interesting one. Let me just get to this one. Give me 1 second. Let's read this one. This is the one I was trying to get to. Introduce a home buyer's bill of rights to ensure the process of buying a home is fair, open, and transparent, including banning blind bidding, establishing a legal right to a home inspection, ensuring total transparency on the history of recent house sales prices on title searches, requiring real estate agents to disclose to all participants in a transaction when they are involved in both sides of a potential sale. We already have to do that. Creating a publicly accessible beneficial ownership registry, ensuring banks and lenders offer mortgage deferrals for up to 6 months in event of a job loss or major life event, requiring mortgage lenders act in the buyer's best interest, and stopping rent evictions. This is huge, and I think this is a huge mistake because you know what? Again, it's supply and demand. And where is blind bidding and where is this the biggest problem? The big cities. This doesn't happen outside of Toronto. Typically, it's happening now, but this is the first time I think in history that everywhere in Canada is going up, and places like, you know, places like Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, out east, in the interior of Canada, they're seeing bidding wars. That is not typical, and it's only been typical in Ontario for the last whatever few years. But like, putting a stop to that is silliness. Build more houses. The more houses there are, the more supply people have. The more supply people have, the more options they have. The more options you have, the better off you are. Like, that is just, I think that is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think you need to do that. That's
What's blind bidding? Blind bidding is
bidding
that
wars. Like, you're putting in an
that's bidding
offer.
wars.
So Diana, if there's 5 offers or there's 50 offers on a property, nobody knows what the other offers are.
But
So
that's how it is right now. Yeah, so that's how
how
it
it
is
is
right
right now.
now
So they're saying
to remove that.
ban that.
So
So
see, so can I say actually, so I believe that the purpose of blind biddings was put into place because when you showed the price, people already knew like what it was, and then they could outbid, and prices were actually going up higher when you saw the prices. And whereas with blind bids, you didn't, so you were just
right.
kind of like, I'm gonna try this number out and see how it goes for me, you know?
I just think from my point of view, as a realtor, we almost always know what the house is going to sell for. Like, it doesn't matter what you price the house at. I can pretty much tell you what it's going to sell for, because it sells for market value. It ends up selling for what the other people look at what the other houses are selling for. I just think I think it's kind of silliness that
Yeah, it's like
they
time
want to ban
wasted, I
that.
think, right? This time wasted, like money we're wasting on putting these regulations in when, yeah, you're very
Absolutely.
right, because it's the job of the realtor actually when you're going in a bidding war, they tell you, like, okay, if it's more than this, cut it off, we're not gonna buy it, or like yeah, because you're right, like realtors already know what it's gonna buy for, and it's really like a few up and down to the number. So I feel like,
Yeah.
again, like it's kind of like money that we don't want to spend, you know, people trying to
I
bend.
think it's a waste.
Yeah. It's
I
like
think it's a
there's
waste.
some things in here where it's just like, stop, like take it out. Like it doesn't affect us. Why are we going to put our money there? We have better places to put our
Yeah.
tax
I
dollars.
think I think this banning blind bidding is a knee-jerk reaction, and it's trying to calm a market that will naturally calm itself. So, I mean, the actual fact is, if we have buyers that are going in on a property and we know there's going to be multiple offers, our advice is always, let's look at comparables, come up with a price, go in at your best price that you're willing to pay. And you don't have to feel like you have to go up in the price. You don't have to overpay. The fact of the matter is, the property, you're going to have an issue down the road if you overpay, because it's not going to appraise and then you can't get financing. I mean, that's what happened in 2017. I mean, it looks like all those houses sold for those prices. A lot of them didn't close. Some of them didn't close, and other ones they had to renegotiate with the sellers because the banks were, the bank is giving you loan to value ratio, which is another call that we should probably talk about. What is loan to value ratio? But the government, if your bank is giving you 80% loan to value ratio, that means they're giving you 80% of what they say it's worth, not what you paid for it. So a lot of those properties didn't close. So what happened? It kind of calmed the market down. Like, I just think it's silliness for the government to get involved in all of this stuff. If there's more housing, there's more options for people. That's basically the way it works. So I think the interesting part is there's nothing in here in the Liberals' plan that talks about the tax on capital gains on a principal residence. And I think that's really deceiving. I think they really need to talk about whether they're going to do that or not, because putting a tax on capital gains on a principal residence is an abomination as far as I'm concerned. That cannot be done. That is what's going to hurt so many people for their retirement. So many people.
And maybe they decided to take it out because they realized it was a big mistake.
I think well, here's what I think. I think they're not going to say that, but I think you have to decide who you believe the most here, right? Like, let's be honest, right? Who are you going to believe here? That's the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's a lot of other there are a lot of other issues in terms of this election, and I think one of the other big huge ones is mental health and how that's going to be dealt with. So I think you have to look at their whole platform overall. But I also think that some of these things, I think what's going on with the housing market, I think a lot of this is a knee-jerk reaction and just trying to quiet some people down, and I think they should just leave it alone
Yeah.
and let the market take care of itself.
Yeah. And I mean, and what you advocate for, right? Education. I think like that, like COVID happened, like a lot of craziness happened, but then it's also not like maybe focusing on the education part, right? Like you're saying, like understanding them, like you don't need to have a full understanding, but maybe putting time to understanding like what actually happened, what was implemented good, and like how does it impact? Because to be honest, anything that anyone puts down and any regulation that you put in, it's going to impact in both sides, right? And it's like let's just do like not like you said the knee jerk reaction and just be like, oh my god, people are complaining about, let's just do it a band-aid. Let's first of all figure out, is that even worth it, like like that, like I don't know, all these foreign buyer things, like all these different, like same thing, like the blind bidding, like why are we wasting our money on that? Let's hope that they don't waste money on those kind of things and put it onto places where it is, and just more, if anything, educating the people, like this was done for this reason. Realize, for example, like we needed to give money for people so we wouldn't like do a hardcore recession and people would be out in the streets, because that would probably put a lot of people out on the streets. So we gave them money, but now the implications of that was this. So it's like, okay, like we did good things,
Yeah.
but now we need to figure out, like now people are angry, and it's just like, but ease the anger, like make them understand why things happened, so that going forward we're doing things to help continue helping, and not to just be like band-aid, 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 just to, and informing people, it's like that, because like the anti-flipping, like I bet you, to the people getting pissed and being like, oh my god, all these people are flipping houses and making the price of houses go up. I don't think so, because all we do is just, we're just trying to, making the houses look nice. And because of the prices going up so high, you're right, people are becoming much more demanding on what they want in the house. Because if your house was worth 800,000 and now it's like 2.4, now you're going to be quite more critical about that house. If I'm going to be spending 1.4 now and it was 2 years ago it's worth 800, I want to make sure this house is spectacular because I'm going to be buying it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just like really understanding, and I feel like people should be more, the government should be more like that, maybe educating, like these are the reasons why this thing is happening. And then maybe people are like, oh, you know what, like I don't really mind about flipping, then that kind of makes sense,
Yeah.
or I don't mind, or like, oh, I don't like blind bidding, I don't know, my understanding was it was put in the past for actually, because when you saw the numbers you were actually bidding much higher
Yeah.
than blind bid, right? So it's just kind of
Well,
like,
think about
are
an
people just upset again because of the economy went up and crazy, and
yeah.
and that's a band-aid, right? It's like, oh,
Right.
let's just show the price, but it's really
Right.
not going to solve
But
anything.
think about an auction. They don't do auctions so they can get less money. They do auctions so they can get more money. So right? Like it just doesn't make any sense. That's why you do an auction, to get
Yeah.
more money and that's why they go so fast. So people have to make like really quick decisions on
Rational decisions, right?
right? So I mean, I don't think that's the answer. I don't think
So I
that's,
think
who
like
knows?
that, like, yeah, there's a lot of people screaming and upset about things, but I think maybe the first approach is better to educate and understand what happened, because right now it's like the government is just like band-aid,
Yeah.
blind bidding, band-aid,
Yeah.
anti-flipping, band-aid, da da da, and it's like excessive profits, band-aid, where it's just like, but is that actually going to solve the problem? And it's like, is this anger that people are seeing really just more irrational because they're not seeing what happens behind, and just explaining it, like,
Yeah.
like it's not really all these things that are making the price of houses go up. It was actually like all the money printing, but the money printing happened because the government needed to help support the people, you know?
Right. But it's supply and demand. It goes right back to what we said earlier. It's supply and demand. I mean, supply and demand is what drives the market, right? The more supply there is, the less demand. The more demand there is, the higher the prices are going to go. So if you have more supply, it's just going to naturally curb itself. I mean,
And
but
just
I think
even
that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and just even seeing how people, like for example, like the whole first wave of COVID where the prices were going up, I think that was like the fear of rich people, right? People were super worried. They're like, oh my God, if our businesses go down, we need to
Yeah,
have like houses to hold us up. So people were going, crazy with that. And I mean, like, can you persecute them that for that? No, I don't think so. Because I mean, if you're scared that your businesses are going down, you need to put your money in a safe haven. And everyone knows that's real estate, right?
yeah,
And then like a lot of people started jumping that bandwagon too, right? It's
right.
just like everyone's just like, a house will always at least have a place for you to stay, and at least it can make you income for rent. Like it's a nice, easy way of just being like, okay, like it
But
keeps me
say,
safe.
but Diana, I think the prices went up in the first wave of COVID is because there was no inventory. So everything drives back to supply and demand. There was no inventory. There was no houses on the market. I did a search last week in Burlington last week. There were detached. I did a search of detached houses in Burlington last week. There were 59 houses on the market.
Mhm.
59
Yeah.
in a city of how many?
Yeah. Oh, I
Like,
agree. So I think now, for example, I'll give you my opinion of now. So I think now the reason why houses will go up is exactly what you're saying, right? Because the prices of houses have gone up so much, people that are living in their house don't want to move out because they're just like, I gotta sell and buy a more expensive house,
right,
and they're scared. So now there's low inventory. But
right.
then there's still the inventory of people that want to buy places. And
Yeah.
then, so exactly what you're saying, like, I think right now what's happening, like I was saying before, like back then when things started up, it was like a lot of people with a lot of money trying to find places for their house,
Yeah.
money for their house, and money, a place for their house. And that was a,
Yeah.
you
A
know,
safe place for their money.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can speak. But now you're right. Now I feel like it's more the fear. I
Yeah.
think people are like, oh my God, my house is 1.4. That means if I sell, I'm probably gonna have to, if I keep that same house, it's gonna be anyways 1.4, 1.5. Or if
Yeah.
I downsize, like how much am I really gonna save from it, right? So now people are in more of a static mode. They're like, I don't want to sell because this is just gonna probably be a bit of a disaster for me. Like it's not gonna benefit me in any way for those people that are just not investing, right? So that's, I feel like, why we see a lot of not houses on the house, we don't see very many houses on the market. And then but there's still like a lot of people wanting to buy though. So and then like that, so you're right, prices are going to go skyrocketing high again because now we're in a different kind of environment where like people I don't think want to sell their houses that are living there because they're probably like scared for their life, like that house is worth a lot, let's just hold on to that baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. We'll see what happens, but I think, like I say, there's a lot of other issues that people have to look at every issue that's up, like that's coming up. And I think there's bigger fish to fry than this housing market. And I personally think mental health is one of them. I think that's a bigger fish to fry than the housing market. I think they need to, like, I don't think it's that big of an issue. It will take care of itself. So I would just encourage everybody to get out and vote, of course, because your vote does matter, but do your research and figure out who has the platform that you align most with, and that's who you want in the government. And then we need to hold the government accountable to do what they say they're going to do, which is a whole other ball of wax. But that's what you and I are here for, to educate. We talked about education, and that's what we're here for every Tuesday, to educate people about the real estate market, about investing in real estate, about everything to do with real estate, including mindset, because you and I both are big believers that mindset is a huge part of this, and we'll get people where they need to go, decide what you want out of your life, and then get yourself to that spot.
Yeah, because any change in life requires mindset.
Absolutely.
Buying your first home is the scariest thing in the world. So you
Oh, isn't
gotta
it?
work on your mindset to make
Very
it
scary.
happen.
That is very scary. Yes. So, okay, we're going to wrap it up because we've gone really long today, but I think this
I
was a
know.
really
Very
interesting
passionate, right?
topic. What's that?
Yeah, it was it was like that, very passionate. Like it was like
Yes, very
lots to
much. What are
talk
we doing
about.
next week? What's next week, Diana? I ask you
Um,
this every week. I should know these things. What are we doing next week?
it should be Q&A. So if you guys have
Q&A.
questions about
Awesome.
this, ask
Okay.
us. If you have questions about anything real estate related, ask us, and
Yeah.
we'll be
You
we'll be
can
answering
put if you have questions, you can put them in the chat here and we will see them later on. You can always direct message either Diana or myself. If you have questions about investing in real estate or you have any questions for us, just in real estate in general, feel free to reach out. Like that's what we're both here for. That's what we come on here for every Tuesday, to educate people and help you learn about real estate investing in the market and all that. So that's what we're here for. Reach out if you have any questions. We're always happy to answer them. We do answer them, by the way. We answer everybody. So if you have any questions, let us know. And if not, we will see you next Tuesday. When is yeah, so the election is Monday. So by next Tuesday, we'll know what's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that again.
Yeah, maybe we will. We'll have to touch on that a little
Or
bit.
maybe in a few weeks, actually, because
Yes.
I mean, not right after election do you really know what they're going to actually start
Right.
doing.
When the dust settles, let's see what
Yeah,
happens.
when the dust settles, maybe we'll talk about it again to just see
Yeah.
what is
I
actually
will
happening.
say, one thing I will say in closing is that in years past, a lot of times leading up to elections, people would say, oh, I'm going to wait because I want to see what happens with the election. And I'll say I'm not hearing that at all. So I don't think it's like, then my thought is that it's not a huge issue for the public, because I'm not hearing people say I want to wait and see what happens with the election. So
100%.
yeah. So maybe just like you say, they're putting too much emphasis on something that doesn't need an emphasis. So yeah, very interesting. Always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm going to stop sharing now, but always a pleasure to talk to you, Diana. And I will see you next week on the flip side.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's great chatting with you too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.